Hi, I'm Dominic Cianciolo. I'm the story and voiceover director for NetherRealm Studios, and I'm here today to answer some unsolved mysteries about the Mortal Kombat universe.
Get over here!
First up, Guillermo R. asks, why didn't Cronica restore Shinnok? So, Cronica did not restore Shinnok because it was beyond her power to do so. When Raiden decapitated Shinnok at the end of Mortal Kombat X, that act itself was irreversible, and it was that act that tipped the balance between good and evil in the Mortal Kombat universe irrevocably towards good.
The Thunder God has upset the balance of history.
And because Cronica no longer could achieve her desired balance of good and evil between the realms of the Mortal Kombat universe, that's why she decided to restart time and take everybody back to the beginning and reboot things. Keon H. asks, are Raiden, Shao Kahn, and Argus the same race of immortals? And as a follow-up, also asks, what does it mean for Raiden and Fujin to be demigods? Well, at this point in Mortal Kombat, Shao Kahn, Raiden, and Argus are not the same types of beings. Shao Kahn, though extremely powerful, is neither a god nor an immortal. Raiden and Argus are more similar, having divine origin, to both being protectors of their respective realms. The use of the term demigod for Raiden and Fujin is simply to denote them as lesser gods than the elder gods. We found that people were getting confused as to sort of what layer they were on, and so we adopted that term in MK11 to try to separate it and make it a little clearer where they were. This is not to indicate that they're any less divine than the elder gods themselves. Dragos MS asks, who does Natara answer to? Is there a high-ranking authority among the vampires, vampire elders, and just what exactly is Natara? Alright, so Natara, who we haven't seen in a while, hails from the realm of Eternus, which is where her race of vampires are from and controls. Eternus is ruled by a coven, which includes the head of the realm's most ancient 12 families, and Natara reports directly to that coven. So Tassin H. asks if Shao Kahn is a god and former protector of Outworld, like in the original timeline. Well, first, for those that aren't aware, the original timeline we're talking about are all the games prior to the Mortal Kombat reboot in 2011. It's colloquially known as MK9 among certain folks. So that's when we re-began our narrative and started things up again. So starting in that Mortal Kombat, Shao Kahn is a little bit different. Shao Kahn is immortal, though his lifespan is so long that to Earthrealmers he can feel like he is immortal. He has great strength, he can wield incredible magic, but he would not be considered a god because he's not of divine origin. Who created the Soul Stones that are deep inside the NetherRealm? The Soul Stones that are in the NetherRealm were first created by the sorcerers that toiled for the Elder Gods back in the most ancient times. These sorcerers were tasked with building a network of portals that would connect all the realms together. But working in the NetherRealm sapped their powers, and as a result they needed to build the Soul Stones to restore their energy as they worked in the NetherRealm.
Fatality.
So the Ars Technica editors were asking, looking back on the series, which are my favorite fatalities, babalities, friendships, and animality? So my favorite fatality is Johnny's deadly uppercut from Mortal Kombat 11.
Cut! Reset!
Deadly uppercut, take two.
Action! Cut!
Who hired this guy?
I love the amount of storytelling that Shanna O'Meara and our fatalities team jammed into such a small amount of time. It was gross, it was funny, and it was just totally in character from Johnny Cage. And another one from Tassin H. Tassin asks, where are the other elemental gods? So far, we've only seen Raiden and Fujin, so where do they go? Are they dead? Are they in the Temple of the Elements, as Fujin says in one of his intros? So, as Fujin said, the wise demigod that he is, the other elemental gods continue to guard the Temple of the Elements. It's there that they're keeping watch over various sacred items that need to be kept away from both mortals and as well as other evildoers in the Mortal Kombat universe. Now, Mark TDW asks, I need to ask the single most important, hotly debated, unanswered question in the history of the entire Mortal Kombat series, and that is, what the hell happened in Fiji with Jackie Briggs? This is something that's referenced in a few of our intro dialogues, and it's very clear that Jackie had a very bad experience in Fiji, a humorous one, but a bad one. But I have to say, much of what happened on Fiji remains classified. What little we know has been pieced together from materials that have been brought to light versus Freedom of Information Act requests and some on-the-ground eyewitness testimony.
So what the heck happened in Fiji?
God, can we not do this?
What we do know is that the U.S. government hatched a special operation to infiltrate a meeting being held by an international terrorist group. It should have been simple, but thanks to a combination of sketchy intel, pesky innocent bystanders, and a particularly irate iguana, the whole mission went south.
You spilled about the Fiji mission?
Heard all about the Uzis and umbrella drinks.
I am going to kill him.
Animality.
My favorite animality has to be Katana's rabbit animality, hands down. I mean, how can an animality that references Monty Python and the Holy Grail not be your favorite? I mean, to me, that just wins. Can't Ban the Jan asks, so if Raiden and Liu Kang coexisting together disturb Cronica's desired balance, Why does she always restart time with both of them existing and being allies? Okay, Cronica's ultimate goal has been to create a timeline where good and evil are in perfect balance. She hasn't achieved that goal yet. In some, the scales have tipped too far towards good. In others, they've tipped too far toward evil. In each case, when the scales have tipped too far in one direction or the other, Cronica has rebooted the timeline and started over. Now, Raiden's and Liu Kang's coexistence does not by itself irrevocably tip the scale towards good. In fact, Cronica sees their alliance as a key means for good to strongly balance evil. And with each iteration of the timeline, she's always trying to strike a better balance. It's only in those timelines where Raiden and Liu Kang have caused things to go too far to the side of good that they become a problem. And she's still trying to just tweak it to get it exactly where she wants to be. Tassin asks, did the Titans birth the other Elder Gods, similar to how Cronica birthed Cetrion and the fallen Elder God Shinnok? So of the Elder Gods, only Shinnok and Cetrion were born of Cronica, and they're the only two Elder Gods that were born of the Titans. Cronica birthed Shinnok and Cetrion so she could have an inside man and an inside woman in place as she was trying to achieve her mission of balancing good and evil between the realms. Other than Cronica, the other Titans really have not involved themselves directly in the affairs of the realms. Fury of Frog asks, how many Khans have there been? The exact number of Outworld Khans, unfortunately, has been lost to the pages of history, because Outworld Khans usually force their predecessors out rather than peaceably succeed them. And therefore the tendency has been to bury the history of prior regimes rather than celebrate it. As a result, much of our knowledge of Outworld history has actually been lost. So Dragos MS also asks, how did Chaos Realm come to be? Well, before there were any realms, at the beginning of existence, there was only the Elder Gods and the One Being. The One Being fed off the Elder Gods and would have consumed them if the Elder Gods had not fought back. The Elder Gods defeated the One Being and split the One Being into pieces. Those pieces became the realms, all the realms, including Chaos Realm. Tavish de Groot 1 asks, did Frost kill her mother intentionally or accidentally? Her dialogue can be taken both ways. It's pretty clear that it was intentional. Frost had a really lousy home life and a lot of beefs with her mother.
Babality.
Now, my favorite babality is Kano's babality from Mortal Kombat 9. I love the fact that his facial cybernetic implant is too heavy for baby Kano, and it causes him to fall over. I mean, sort of watching him list to one side and then just fall over cracks me up every time. Ars Technica also asks, which MK character has the happiest home life? Well, as we established a little bit earlier, Frost certainly is. But if we're defining happiest home life as, in the traditional sense, as some place that's peaceful, pleasant, and a place of refuge, I'd have to go with Liu Kang. I mean, his life among the Shaolin is a great source of personal strength for him. But if we're defining happy home as one that simply gives the character pleasure, I'd probably have to go with Kano. I mean, he revels in the crazy, debauched life that he leads.
I'm doing this one for fun.
It's a life that most rational, caring people would reject, but it certainly makes him happy. And another question from Fury of Frog, when regular humans die, do they go to the Nether Realm, or is that only for combatants? So the Nether Realm in the Mortal Kombat universe is the place where any creature who dies with an evil soul will go. It doesn't matter whether they're a combatant or just a regular Joe living somewhere. If you're evil, or if your soul is tainted with evil, when you die, you're going to wind up in the Nether Realm. You know, what is the origin of Toasty? This happened well before I got to the studio, but here's basically how it went down. Ed Boon and Dan Forden used to play a lot of high-impact and super high-impact football games they both worked on together while working on MK1. As the players break the huddle and approach the line, there's a brief opportunity to get in with a brag or a taunt before play starts, something along the lines of like, I'm going to bust you up, or you're toast. Well, your toast turned into I predict toast, or something like that, and somehow then it became I predict toasty with that operatic falsetto warble. George Petro, another game designer they were working with, commented that they should put it as some kind of silly inside joke in Mortal Kombat. Dan didn't think anybody was taking this seriously until Ed one day suggested that it'd be cool that if on 1% of all uppercuts, an image of Dan's face would slide out onto the screen and say toasty. Dan agreed, and the rest is history.
Friendship.
My favorite friendships, I really wanted to split this up between old school and new school because things have changed so much in terms of how we can present them and the amount of things we can just dump into the friendships this go around in Mortal Kombat 11. Well, the old school friendships, my favorite has to be Cabal and his marshmallow toasting. I'm a big fan of toasting marshmallows, and the huge one that he cooks on his hook sword looks like I could spend an entire evening gnawing on the darn thing. Perfection. It's just awesome. In Mortal Kombat 11, my favorite friendship has to be Raiden's. It was a great way to update the original friendship with Kid Thunder and also pay tribute to that awesome light balance performance that we've seen a lot of on the internet. I mean, that was just fantastic that they could pull that off. Something that's often been asked of us is whether Aftermath's confrontation between Raiden and Liu Kang over whether or not to trust Shang Tsung, which directly calls back to a similar beat in Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe, is intended to make those events of MKDC canon? And the answer is yes. Definitely, for sure. We can assume that those events happened in one of Cronica's many previous timelines. Clearly, she thought it was a mistake because she rolled it back and got rid of it. But yeah, as we looked at this idea of timelines and multiple timelines, we were hoping to be able to integrate a lot of the past lore, including MKDC, and it was a lot of fun for us to be able to reference that back. And we knew that our most observant fans and those folks that have been with us through the whole history of the game were going to pick up on that and see that similarity. Another question we get at the studio a lot is in Aftermath's prologue, where we hear that Fujin, Nightwolf, and Shang Tsung have been trapped by Cronica in a void, and that's where they've been during the events of the main game. And the question comes up is this void new to Mortal Kombat lore? Well, actually, it isn't. It's not something that's new. The void was first mentioned in Scorpion's bio in NK Deception, and that was something we saw and we're like, oh, you know what? We can totally bring that back and use that for Mortal Kombat 11. So one question that we've gotten from folks who have perhaps not played all of the older Mortal Kombat games is about Fujin and Shiva. If they've played a big role in the Mortal Kombat Aftermath story, and sort of when were they first playable in the history of Mortal Kombat? Shiva made her first playable appearance back in Mortal Kombat 3. Fujin made his first playable appearance back in Mortal Kombat 4. However, that wasn't Fujin's first appearance in Mortal Kombat lore. He first shows up as an opponent in Mortal Kombat Mythology's Sub-Zero, as Sub-Zero battles his way through the Temple of the Elements. Well, that's all the questions that we have time for. I want to thank everyone who submitted a question. We were overwhelmed with the amount of questions we had, a lot of really great questions, and it took a lot of effort from a lot of people to sift through them and pick the ones that we could answer today. There were a lot of really great questions about sort of the dark areas of the Mortal Kombat universe and a lot of these unsolved mysteries that we can hopefully solve for you today. Of course, there are still many more that are left, and hopefully we can come back at another time and be able to answer more questions for people. For those of you out there whose names I might have mispronounced, I have to apologize for that. I feel your pain. I have a hard-to-pronounce last name myself, Cianciolo. It gets mispronounced constantly, so I know what that's like. I did my best. If I didn't get it right, please feel free to hit me on Twitter and correct my pronunciation. That's it for now. Thanks again from all the folks here at NetherRealm Studios for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon.
Are you ready?